Awesome. All right. Wow. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have the numbers keep growing, and I hope everyone's well at the moment. And before we begin, I would just would like to welcome you guys. Selamat datang. How are you guys doing? Gimana kabarnya? uh, before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the land of many different traditional custodians. I'm joining you from Kulin Nation and acknowledge that sovereignty of this land was never ceded by the Wurundjeri people. I acknowledge and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and recognize their heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. If I may, I'd like to encourage those who are also attending from unceded lands or are aware of other communities in your country that didn't cede their land to take a moment to acknowledge those people as well. Thank you very much for coming to today's webinar. My name is Doni Marmer, tuning from Melbourne. I'm the program officer here at CAUSINDY, and I'll be your moderator today. The talk this evening very special as we are celebrating Youth Activism Month in Indonesia. And this week, on the 20th October, we were celebrating a triumphant day called Hari Sumpah Pemuda, remembering the spirit of youth that contributed to the development of Indonesia to date. And as an Indonesian youth myself, I feel proud of it, and I've embraced that as well, and the privilege that we have and the power that been given by all of our predecessors as well. To give a context beyond that, we now recognize that how borderless and limitless youth engagement could be. And there's not much conversation anymore about borders, about language barriers, and in contrary, youth can lead a movement that can change the world entirely. For example, Greta Thunberg, that's a very easy example that we can take. However, as someone that coming from a youth organization myself, I realized the impact of global pandemic might hit hard on our movement. And trust me, it's very, very hard to hold on towards this unprecedented time. Therefore, today, we are so honored to hold this webinar, and we have such an amazing panelists that will be joining us today from key youth organizations operating in Australia Asian sphere to discuss opportunities and challenges to maintaining youth connectivity with future opportunities and also leadership strategies for young professionals in the region to thrive post-COVID. Our speakers also will share lessons learned and innovations they have to create adapting to this challenging time, especially in terms of empowering youth across the region. So, who are they? We are joined by three powerhouse speakers. First, we have Dr. Yang Mee Eng, the Executive Director of the Asian Foundation, streaming from Malaysia. Hi, Dr. Yang, how are you doing?
Sorry, just on my mic. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tony, for the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. We'll also hear from Juli Binu, Program Manager of Love Frankie, tuning in from Jakarta, Indonesia. Hi, Juli.
Hai, hello everyone. Selamat sore buat yang ada di Indonesia.
Selamat sore. And the last but not least, the inimitable Cameron Allan, CEO of Asian Australia Youth Strategic Partnership, or ASIP, calling from Canberra, Australia. Hi, Cameron.
Hi, Donnie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope you're doing well over there.
Going well. Nice Friday afternoon over here.
Definitely. Later, we will hear them introducing themselves and the organization they represent, along with their existing activities that they conducted these past years. So my suggestion is buckle up and prepare yourself with your notes, because there will be such an amazing ideas and inspiration will be gained. Just a quick housekeeping that this webinar is being recorded and live streamed through our Facebook page. And later on, we will publish this webinar into a podcast and video format, so you can just share it to your friends if you feel that you're inspired with our conversation today. And also, I would like to encourage you to if you have any questions between the conversation that we have today, please put it in the Q&A section below. And I encourage you to ask as many questions as possible, because this is also kind of like a safe ground to interact with each other as well, and to get more information from our panelists. And if you kind of like tuning in from Facebook, you can also deliver your questions over there, and then we're gonna read it out loud as well. Last but not least, if you have any questions in Bahasa Indonesia as well, it's just deliver it. Jangan malu-malu. I will be there to help you answer that question, deliver that question as well. Okay, now let's just dive straight in. First of all, I would like to know more about Dr. Yang and ASEAN Foundation. As a nonprofit that operates in the region to engage with youth activism and capacity building, would you mind to tell us a little bit about yourself and ASEAN Foundation to our audience?
Thank you so much, Donnie. Actually, I wasn't prepared to talk about myself. It's a youth day. It's young people's day. Actually, I came from government and also corporate world. So I used to be a person who is very much into creative industry. So it's like media, games, animations, you know. I think that most people knows about Upin Ipin and Bobo Boy and all that. Those days, these were my babies, you know. I was nurturing them, and you know, today they are what you can see everywhere in Indonesia. They are one of the top IPs. I'm very proud of that. So I'm pretty much quite an entertainment person from the entertainment industry, but I have also been known as a business because I do a lot of business matching before, and then also blockchain, because my last career was in blockchain. One of the early female blockchain person. So I did ICO those days, you know. I mean, that now is ICO kind of like people is a bit worried about ICO because there's a lot of coins, you know, selling and all that, you know. But I'm glad that I went through all these things. You never went through, you never know what it is about. So I'm glad I did that, you know. So I have no regrets over my path before. So just a quick one to go dive straight into what is ASEAN Foundation thing. That is what most people here are interested about. We are actually, the second slides, please, Donnie. We are actually an ASEAN Charter. So ASEAN body, you know, ASEAN Charter. And we do, our main focus is actually people-to-people connections. Because back in 20 over years ago, where ASEAN is 30 years old, so they have a meeting in Kuala Lumpur, you know, so all the leaders was thinking, you know, there's something lacking in the ASEAN things, you know, what they are doing is more on policy on the top, you know, policy strategies and things like that. But something is not right, is the connection to the people is lacking. So that is how back in December in 1997, so they set out ASEAN Foundation. So everybody will ask the questions, what is ASEAN Secretariat, ASEAN and ASEAN Foundation? Are we reporting under ASEAN Secretariat? No, we didn't. You know, so we are like brothers and sisters because we have the same parents, which is the 10 ASEAN member states. AMS. So all our bosses, same secretary has the same boss, 10 bosses, and I have the same boss, 10 bosses. That means I report to 10 board of director members from the 10 ASEAN states members. So we do if you want to know more, we do a reporting like 1 year twice. So very close to grilling time now, December. Okay, so during this COVID time, of course, everything is quite challenging. I think everybody here cannot deny the challenge, especially NGOs. I think Cameron and Juli and all that will agree with me, you know. The beginning time during March, you know, I mean, Indonesia is, I was based in Indonesia, by the way. The only office is in Indonesia for us. So everybody was like still hanging around, hugging each other, you know, life is like normal. But when we go to other places, like other country, like Singapore and Malaysia and all that, people is already very scared and aware of COVID-19, you know. But people in Indonesia is, I think they are not scared of it at the early stage. You know, no doubt we try to do some early alert, but everyone seems to be like still in a holiday mood, like summer all the time. So nobody cares about mask also. And being a Malaysian and also very close to Singapore, I think there's a joke say that, you know, we are very scared to lose. So we always try to be at the front. There is a concept called kiasu. So these are actually a Hokkien Chinese dialects. So we always use it. Even in Malaysia, we say you are so kiasu, means you're so scared to lose. So we kind of very fast wanted to do something to be prepared. So I asked my team, hey, get the mask. My team looked at me. Kenapa, Ibu? It's like, you know, why we need a mask at this time, you know? So it was a process. So different, as what Donnie said, different culture, different way of dealing with things. But also, of course, every ASEAN, I think, is way much resilient when it comes to, you know, adapting ourselves, agile. So we are Asean Chapter, and then because of all the experience for the past 20 over years, we finally found a niche last few years that we are focusing on youth 15 to 34 years old. This is a United Nations, you know, standard category that everybody is talking about it. So if you look at the 4 pillars on the right, you have 4 colors. We're focusing on 4 sectors. One is art and culture, one is education, and then community development and media. Okay, so but a lot of people always forgot about art and culture. They always think that we are media. You know, media is part of it. Because media skills, we feel that it is very important right now, more important when everything goes into digital. So if you have if you are from the media line, I'm sure that you can adapt very easily, you know, and your skills is most sought after right now. Every company will look for you, you know, even including ourselves. We recruit people also who is very good in social media and media side. So if you look at the 3 box underneath, you say build greater awareness of ASEAN. That is one thing. Awareness of ASEAN means we want to have an identity building, you know, so everyone can feel a sense of belongings and be united. Yeah? So that is the instill ASEAN identity, because there's a lot of debate over this. For the past few months, there were a few, I mean that last month also I went for the European identity and ASEAN identity discussion sessions. There was it's quite kind of ambiguity, you know, nobody knows exactly what is it about. I mean, you can't touch it, definitely. You know, you know it is there, ASEAN identity, but you just can't put something exactly, this is ASEAN. Nobody can claim that, oh, ASEAN is my identity is ASEAN per se, you know, but it is actually everyone's identity is ASEAN. The 10 countries' identity together blend into the pot, we call it a melting pot, then is an ASEAN identity. Okay, so everybody asks me, oh, how do you want to recognize that we are ASEAN? I say, whatever you are practicing right now, you're believing in, this is ASEAN. No, because ASEAN consists of everyone. It's nobody should be outside. No? So, and then we also want to provide a platform for youth to grow their future-ready skills. This is mainly more enhanced. The importance of it has been stressed more now. But actually, it's nothing new for ASEAN Foundation, because I think my predecessor, Eileen Tan, if you already know ASEAN Foundation, she has also laid the foundation quite strong. Because she has started doing ICT, SNT kind of programs since 4 years ago. So it is nothing really like shocking for us, like a major transition. It's just that we have to strengthen this STI, because everything has to use science and technology right now. Even now, using this platform without STI, can we have this kind of technology to drive, you know, the sharing platform? So this is what we're doing. So we go to the activity, Donnie, the next slides. I will go for a quick one. If you look at the left-hand side, actually, these are some of our programs, a flagship program. I think if you will see AFMAM is definitely what everyone is aware of, because this is one of the longest program. I started more than 3 to 4 years ago, and this is the programs that build leadership and empowering the youth. Apart from that, we do have an empowering youth program, which is on the second row. You can see there is actually a partnership with Maybank Foundation. Thanks to them, because they really give us a lot of support, and these, we have built very good leaders in the community in each some of the countries, participating country, and these youth are doing amazing developmental, social developmental and volunteering projects. Later, if you are interested, we can always share with you. But this program was put on hold for a while. It's supposed to be organized on last June, but because the nature of this is the only programs that we actually put on hold for a while, because this is the one that has to be on the ground. You have to be in the village, you have to be in the rural area, the poor people, the more marginalized group. So you can't do it via internet, because it's already said it's to help the marginalized group. So marginalized, sometimes they're lacking on many aspects. So for us to launch it, simply launch it, we can do it, but the impact is not going to be there. That's why we also waiving, as driving the ASEAN Foundation during this challenging time. We also cannot just want to fulfill our KPI, per se, like we are going to do it, we do it, but we also have to see what is the impact that is bringing to the community. So apart from, but we are lucky enough, we have all our partners now, SAP, Microsoft, USA, everyone is so supportive. We don't have anyone coming to us and say, I want to quit, I don't want to continue with the project, or I want my money back, So we don't have that. So thank God, So I'm sure that this is the time that we can find who is the real people who care, who is the organization that who really cares, So this is a time that you find friends, and you find people who really mean what they do, all this time. The genuine city, you will be tested during this hard time. So ASEAN Data Science Explorer is definitely a future-ready skill. And then we also have Future Ready ASEAN. This is actually a free platform also. There is a competition for data and to use the Microsoft Python programs, so to develop solutions and all that. So you can go to futurereadyasean.org. This is actually backed by Microsoft. And then we have ASEAN Science and Technology Fellowship is to build scientists. We already have 67 scientists right now. The scientists have been placed and been given some certain funding so that they can support and advise consultancy to all the local government, like a Ministry of Science and Technology in their country, respective country. So they will offer their scientific research skills and also consultations to help solve the local issues. So we just closed that program. It's already completed. Thank God we've managed to finish this program as scheduled, because earlier we were quite worried about finishing this, because this also require the scientists to be very close to their respondents. Okay, Connect ASEAN is our latest, which is arts and culture, and fully supported by Korean government. So thanks to Korean government, ROC, and also we have this program starting from this year for two to 3 years program. So it's a platform to share and to exchange knowledge on arts and culture between Korea and Malaysia, and Korean and ASEAN, and also Korean and other partners. So, of course, right now, because of COVID also, we do have some ad hoc programs, which last for maybe 6 months to 1 year, which is recovery, and also some of the projects is actually feed the poor. We call it ASEAN Care. We managed to get some certain funds from United Ways. So they selected first 3 countries to help, which is Malaysia, Myanmar and Thailand. So we distribute sanitizing and also food supplies for affected population, affected people in these 3 countries. So we hope that ASEAN Care will continue to care for more after this, because we are opening up for more partnership. Thank you.
Okay.
I pass it back to Donnie. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yang. It was a very amazing introduction.
Yeah.
And we already have learned a lot about ASEAN Foundation. Thank you very much. Now, we're moving on to Cameron, because we know that Cameron was actually an alumni of one of Asian Foundation program as well, right? And also an interning over there. Maybe Cameron, can you, now actually Cameron is leading an organization between Southeast Asia and Australia. Cameron, would you like to tell us about yourself and also maybe introduce us to ASIP?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Johnny. I'll really quickly introduce myself. My name's Cameron. I'm in my final year of my studies. Fingers crossed, I graduate next week after my final exams. And yeah, so at the moment I run the ASEAN Australia Strategic Youth Partnership, which is a fabulous organization. And I suppose my key kind of experience working across Southeast Asia and Australia was last year I was the ASEAN Fellow for the New Colombo Plan. So I spent about 15 months in and across Southeast Asian countries. And so that was a really formative experience. And that was kind of where a lot of, that's when sort of ASIP started last year. So I thought I'd give a little bit of a background of how ASIP begun. Because I feel like the story, we'll start with the first slide, Donnie, thanks. Just leave it here for first, yeah. So the thing about ASIP is it was started by a group of young people, right? So often the organizational's founding story is also a personal story. So for me, what inspired me, what was the motivating thing for me to get involved in something like ASIP? Well, I feel like it dates back to sort of when I was growing up. So I grew up in a place in Australia called Newcastle, which is relatively, well, it's quite a big city. It's like a medium-sized city. And I was very lucky to attend a really multicultural primary school where all the kids who had recently immigrated to Australia or were like refugees that had come to Australia would go to my school, because that's where there was a really strong English as a second language program. So for me, growing up, it was very, very normal to have friends from all over the world. And it was fabulous. I remember spending weekends watching Chinese TV, but not being able to understand a word of it. But that was just kind of how it was. So I felt throughout my life, a lot of my friends growing up came from all these different backgrounds. So when I started at university, I was really excited to study and learn more about particularly Asia and particularly Southeast Asia. And so I found myself studying Asia-focused courses at university. And then when I got the chance, I was very excited to go on exchange. And so that was what led up to last year, where I was studying in Yogyakarta at UGM, and then at NUS in Singapore, and starting ASIP. So for me, I think the key experience I had when I was in Southeast Asia was that I felt like so many of the young Southeast Asians I met had so much in common with so many of my friends back home in Australia. And it just really solidified for me that young people are just really incredible. There was an intense curiosity to get to know each other. There was a willingness, there was always willingness to approach problems collectively and work in teams. There was always unfettered optimism and a desire to learn. And that's what I sort of observed with a lot of my friends from exchange and from when I was in Southeast Asia. And there were so many similarities with sort of the people I grew up with, but also just like my friends in Australia. And it just made me realize there is so much in common with young people across the region, but also we have so much to learn from each other, because we do grow up in completely different cultures, and we do have completely different stories to tell. And those stories are really, really important to share. So I was having this really great time, and I was thinking to myself, well, I see two problems. First, there isn't a platform for when this experience ends for me to continue my relationships in a really practical and collaborative way with my Southeast Asian friends. Of course, I'd been involved with organizations like AYA before, which are fabulous organizations, but outside of like Indonesia and Vietnam, there wasn't a lot going on. And the second issue I had was that when I looked at when I studied international relations, when I looked at the international relations world, I was quite dispirited. Like there was, you know, aid spending in Australia, like spending on development is at its lowest point in history. Multilateral organizations are struggling. Asian language education in Australia is becoming less popular. And so for me, I just saw all of these issues and I was like, well, I feel like the world needs is more young people with their really fresh and optimistic ideas, because I feel like these are the issues that we can tackle. So we can jump to the next slide. Thanks, Donnie. So then myself and some friends put together this organization called ASIP. And so what we say on the website and stuff like that is ASIP contributes to building a peaceful region by connecting young Australians and Southeast Asians and giving them the skills and environment to collaborate effectively. But sometimes that sounds a little bit like government speak. It might be a little bit confusing. Like, what does that actually mean? For me, what it means is having mates across the region is just a great thing. And so for me, I always say that ASIP, and I suppose lots of youth organizations, are about putting the real relationships in international relations. So I think it's a win because you get to learn about things different to yourself and about different ways of thinking. You get new perspectives and new people to collaborate with. And it also helps countries in times of conflict and in times of fear. If people know each other across countries, that is so important. And I'll give a really quick example. When I was living in Indonesia, there was the horrific shooting in New Zealand, where quite a few Indonesians were hurt. But also there was a lot of conversation with my friends being like, oh my God, I didn't realize, you know, Australians had such terrible attitudes towards things like Islam. And it was really important and helpful for me to talk to my friends and say, no, this is not what an average Australian is like. This is not the kind of society I live in. And those personal relationships gave me the opportunity to put things in perspective and to sort of explain, no, this wasn't not all Australians think like this. So I think, yeah, individual personal relationships are really powerful. We'll jump to the next slide. Thanks, Donnie. I'll be really quick. I have a tendency to keep talking. So how do we actually do that is the question. So we do a few things and we're still trying to find our feet because we're only 2 years old. So the first thing we try to do is create spaces for young Australians and Southeast Asians to meet each other. So for example, we run lots of social events in person and online through our hubs and through our digital events program. Secondly, we create opportunities for young people to upskill and collaborate. So for example, we have our ASIP Reset competition, which Dr. Yang will be judging tomorrow, which is very exciting on a Saturday. Thank you so much. Thirdly, we elevate youth perspectives and inject youth perspectives into like popular discourse by having a blog and by publishing a yearly book with youth perspectives. Fourth, we try to foster a generation of leaders with a regional mindset. So we have our annual ASEAN Australia Young Leaders Forum. And finally, we try to encourage young people to get involved and to have their voices heard in policy and in international relations, which is, for example, we ran an Indo-Pacific Student Mobility Youth Dialogue this year about student mobility and how students can have a bigger role in talking about that policy. Thanks, Donnie. Next slide. I might be able to skip. We can come back to this later if you'd prefer.
I think that's great.
Cool.
I guess. Yeah. Are this your team in this?
These are some of our team members. I just pulled, as you all, I'm sure, have at the moment. We just have Zoom meetings after Zoom meetings every single day. So these are just some of the screenshots. But I think that the key point to emphasize here is that before COVID, we were completely an online team already. And I'm sure other people here can relate to that. When you're working in regional teams, you have to be able to work online. So for us, obviously COVID is a terrible situation for a lot of people and definitely don't want to downplay that. But for us, in terms of how we operate, it didn't have a huge impact on us because we act like this anyway. So there was a few silver linings in COVID in that it played to the strength of young people. We are the people that like know these platforms. We're creative and pretty adaptable, and we kind of happy to just sticky tape it together and figure it out. So I think in a lot of ways, yeah, that made it easier.
Okay. I totally can relate to all of your stories, Cameron. Especially watching Chinese TV shows when in my childhood. I had that as well, actually. Okay, next one. We do have Juli Binu.
Hi.
Representing Love Frankie. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
So, Julie representing private sectors that relies on youth movements and active participation, especially in creating social change. So, Julie, tell us a bit about your background and how Love Frankie engaged with youth-led movements in the region.
Okay. So, first of all, I would like to say thank you to CAUSINDY for having me on this panel. And then just a quick intro about myself. I'm Julie. I'm the program manager at Love Frankie, and I'm based in Jakarta. I was working for MTV before I joined MTV Exit, the campaign about human trafficking and exploitation, and that's where I met Donnie back in 2010, I think. And then start my career on the social campaign awareness. Continue to the next slide, Donnie, please. Thank you. Okay, so Love Frankie is a social change agency based in Bangkok, and that design and implements innovative research and communication addressing in social issues across Asia, such as hate speech, misinformation, disinformation, hoax, deforestation, human trafficking, intolerance, and discrimination, and also media and digital literacy and other social issues on the region. Next slide, please. Love Frankie was established in 2014. During the last 6 years, we already conducted projects in Asia Pacific region, including Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Vietnam, Australia, New Zealand, India, and other several Pacific island nations. Next slide. We work with a wide range of clients from private sector such as Facebook and Google, world organizations such as United Nations and IOM, and CSOs such as Greenpeace, Oxfam, and Save the Children. Last slide, please, Donnie. Our general approach when building broader campaign is we always identify the problem first. We help identify where the strengths and gaps in capacity or support may be, and then highlighting where we can add value or where other supports may be needed. We employ a diverse range of methodologies, including big data analysis, social listening, in-depth interviews, focus group discussion, and online communities to inform program design, communication strategies, and to evaluate the impact. So that's a glance about Love Frankie. Thank you.
That's great. That's very quick, but I think we're gonna dig more a bit about Love Frankie as well. In some of questions I already kind of like pulled in, and I can't wait to go on deeper with the conversation that we're gonna have. Actually, thank you very much for the three of the panelists introducing themselves and the organization that they are representing. I wish I'm an 18 years old youth that have the fire and ambition once again to be able to participate in all of this amazing opportunity, but hey, I'm not 10 years late. Okay, let's begin with the conversation. Actually, I have several questions first that I want to ask about the importance of digital mobility in your organizations, because we already talk about, like Cameron already mentioned about how their team already starting as a kind of like a virtual connections before. Dr. Yang also mentioned the importance of digital presence and kind of like engagement in the virtual world. And Julie just talked about it, that the way Love Frankie work as well is actually targeting youth populations that kind of like live in a virtual world, as now we have two worlds that we have to live in. Me, myself, I have to maybe two different identities, like in a real life identity and online identity. But in terms of your organizations and how you work, I'm going to ask first to Dr. Yang, and then the others can follow with quite similar question. What are the priorities set by your organizations in terms of building a better youth or young professional engagement across Southeast Asia and or Australia during this unprecedented time? You already mentioned a little bit about how you engage with or how you adapt with the impact of COVID a little bit, but I think I want to know more on kind of like how your organizations kind of like try to engage with these young populations now.
Thanks, Tony. Actually, for now, actually, I did have the PPT that I sent you, but I won't ask for it because I can also refer to my own copy. We do recognize there are some challenges in the 21st century right now. So actually some of the issues is not really like born with COVID-19. I mean, a lot of people will be trying to blame COVID-19 for everything, but I just think that it's a little bit unfair. Some of the things has been carried on from those days. For instance, like discriminations, it happens before, poverty, lack of resources. But there are two things definitely that we look into is unemployment rates and also future-ready skills. Because these two, I think, for the youth, to prepare them, for some sort of like a knowledge and also a platform for them to be able to learn something extra. Because now the competitions in the labor market is very strong. I mean that for youth that who just graduated, for those that have not graduated is worse, okay? For those that who is going to graduate, and they will find it to be challenging because the market is flooded with very talented people who lost their jobs. So how do you want to stand out among all those people with more experience than you? They might have the same foundation as you, same discipline, same degree, but they have working experience, maybe 3 or 4 years, before they lost their jobs. It's easy for them to jump to another jobs, especially when ASEAN Secretariat do a research on the impact. Jobs losing is the definitely #1 impact. That's why there's a lot of economic recovery plans being put forward, There's a lot of discussions, very serious discussions about how to revive the economy. Because one sectors are very badly affected is tourism and traveling, entertainment. So these two sectors actually, we are in a discussion with one of our partners now for the new program, is to do to do a job matching after enhancing skills. We will reskill, upskill the youth who wants to join the program. And also there is a group of maybe non-youth we might also consider for participations of the upskill and reskill, because I think that sometimes if we disregard 35 years above, this group also is quite in need of support, because some of them might have a mortgage, more issues, because youth might actually still stay with the parents and all that. I mean that maybe for Cameron is not the case, but in ASEAN community, we stay with our parents as long as we can. So as much as we can, we will come to our parents, and sometimes we have, even after married, we still stay with our parents. So I don't know about Donnie and Julie. I think so. So if you are the son, we will continue staying with our parents, and they will be our under our care, So these are the structures of the social structures of ASEAN. So for us, it's like getting them jobs, matching the jobs, because sometimes the jobs are there, but it's just that they couldn't match, there's no platform to match. And most of the platforms sometimes have to pay for it. I don't mention who, that you all would know. So some of the bosses need to actually pay for certain fee, like 1 or 2 months for the agency to recruit you and all that, So we are trying to come out from that kind of model. We wanted to do it free. And then, of course, we believe in partnerships. because we at this moment, partnership is the key, for anything, because we can't even go to each of the countries already and do our programs. So what we rely on is CSO and social enterprise, SE. So we do have strengthened our social CSO network and alumni network, because we build alumni organizations for these leaders of the youth in each country, so they will be able to connect to the community. So these are the things that we are looking at right now.
That sounds very interesting. And I must say, thankfully, I left my house before before I reached my 25. So it's actually a good feeling. I totally understand that kind of point as well.
No, when your parents ask you, when are you going to find jobs? They are not going to think about COVID. Because of COVID, you can't find jobs, But there's new issues now in Malaysia. I mean that we just received some news that many poor students drop out from school right now, from college and university, because they just couldn't sustain anymore. They just couldn't pay for the for the fees, then so many of them. So maybe I think each of the AMS have to come out. ASEAN member states have to think about how to help these youth to equip themselves, fully equip themselves means that finish their study, at least get their certificates and degree. That is one part that we need to look into.
Yeah, that's very interesting. This also like follows on what Love Frankie have been doing as well, engage with education and also alleviating kind of like social engagement for youth, right, Julie? Can you also respond to the question on like how Love Frankie itself built kind of like set up priorities that Love Frankie created this year as well?
Yeah. So I think the youth in Indonesia, Australia, or other countries across Asia Pacific really passionate to engage with social issue. So the desire to learn new things that can open their minds is very strong, especially those related to social issue in their environment and education. One of our projects in Indonesia is Tular Nalar is a good example. In English, Tular Nalar means infecting other people with common sense. The program is initiated by Love Frankie, Ma'arif Institute. Ma'arif Institute is an organization focusing on intolerance, violence, and extremism. And Mafindo, an organization focusing on fighting misinformation and disinformation, and supported by Google.org. So Tular Nalar is a campaign that aims to provide education about digital and media literacy for students and educators through online platforms to answer the problems we're facing during this pandemic. So as we know in Indonesia, the current option for lecturers to transfer knowledge and skill to the students is limited to old-fashioned classroom settings, which has become an obsolete option at this time. And we're not ready with the sudden changes. So to support lecturer to perform learning from home during this pandemic with their students, we create an innovative online learning platform accessible for everyone who wants to learn about media and digital literacy. So why are we pivoting to media and digital literacy? So during the pandemic, Indonesia government discovered more than 500 hoaxes about COVID-19 on the internet. And based on the data provided by Indonesia Internet Service Provider Association in 2018, 91% of internet penetration dominated by youth between the age of 15 to 19 years old. The internet penetration and also social media consumption is increasing, but the level of digital literacy among the population remains relatively low. So to keep up with the growth of the internet consumption, digital literacy education is required. Then with this program, we're targeting more than 5,000 educators and 60,000 university students to engage on this program. This is still small amount comparing to the total university student in Indonesia, which is more than 280,000 students just from public university. It's not including the private university. Yeah? So how we broaden our audience, how we reach them, we collaborate with the government through the Ministry of Education. So with this collaboration, our media and digital literacy curriculum will be part of Ministry of Education Management Learning System for university students that can be accessed by 1 million students in 2021. And I think another good example from one of our projects engaging the youth is DG Engage in Australia. So DG Engage is hosted by Digital Industry Group, DG, and was supported by Department of Home Affairs and Australian government. This year, DG Engage was moved to online or virtual space because of the pandemic. And for this year, we're focusing on countering hate speech and extremism, because as we know that the climate of fear surrounding COVID-19 has increased, racism and xenophobia, particularly against Chinese and Asia Australians, and has the potential to increase intensified risk factor for extremism because of isolation and anti-globalist sentiment. So at that program, we're empowering 80 young influencers and change makers with the knowledge, skill, and confidence to counter fear, hate speech, and racism during COVID-19 and beyond, and to increase their resilience through skills building, creative ideation, tools, and best practice so they can put into practice and share with their networks. So the last program that I want to convey on this panel is the YouTube Creators for Change. So this year, YouTube Creators for Change partnering with UNDP and European Union to support the program nationally and regionally. The program aims to demonstrate the global power of video to address social issues in relevant and creative ways. We were engaging 13 YouTube creators contents from Australia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Philippines to create video about social issues to spark positive conversation on their channels. So every country has different issues to focus on. For example, in Indonesia, we were focusing on gender-based violence, hate speech, extremism, cyberbullying, and in Australia itself, we're focusing on the issue of race and religion-based hate speech. The main challenges that we found during the program was the creator didn't have the same level of production knowledge. So it was very helpful for them to connect with not only the social issue expert for a deep dive discussion on the related issue, but also creative mentoring to give them the skill they need to produce good quality content. From this program, we produced 15 videos and gained 7.3 million views as of July 2020. So I think this one also is a good example to stay connected with the youth through the video on the platform they watch the most now, while we are trying to convey the positive social message at the same time. Because we believe that one view can create a change. Then I think so. All of the program that we did that I explained were actually focusing on the youth capacity building to increase their knowledge in media and digital literacy, and then to increase their skill on creative ideation and to counter negative content on the internet. And the last one is to build self-resilience through intolerance and discrimination. Thanks, Donnie.
Wow, thank you very much for sharing, Julia. That's kind of like an amazing activities. Although it's very heavy, I can understand how heavy all of the topics will be, but kind of like, you know, trying to make it very engaging. I'm sure it's a hard work to do. Thank you for sharing. How about you, Cameron, as a leading youth community? Because Dr. Yang and Julie have mentioned about the programs that they have, and then kind of like using youth as the beneficiaries or kind of like their collaborative partners, but us as kind of like young organizations, and we work with young people, with our friends. How about ASIP? What sort of like priorities that ASIP have to build, you know, a strong relationship and engagement between Southeast Asia and Australia?
Yeah, I suppose when I thought about this question, I thought about like how have we responded to this year, and how has it changed how we engage with young people, and what are the opportunities from that, and what are the challenges? So I think, as I was saying before, moving online for a lot of people has been really challenging. And that particularly is challenging with people, you know, that don't necessarily have like great internet connections, and disproportionately impacts people that don't live in cities and stuff like that, right? But on the whole, young people are really competent and capable when it comes to using these platforms, which means that in a lot of ways, this year hasn't affected us as it may have affected other parts of the population when it comes to engaging with technology. So of course, the first thing that ASIP did this year was move anything that we had planned in person online. So the ASEAN Australia Young Leaders Forum, which we typically run as an annual in-person conference, we postponed it till next year. We don't even know if it will happen next year because we don't want to run it unless everyone can come from all 10 ASEAN countries. So yeah, I think moving online has been a really interesting challenge. I think in some senses, it really increases inclusion. Something that is a massive problem when it comes to like international relations and diplomacy is it's very exclusive. Only a certain amount of people get invited to these roundtables or track 2 dialogues. And being able to do things online has meant you've seen so many webinars and conferences and things that would typically be expensive to attend. You'd have to fly there and be there in person. A lot of those opportunities are going online, which I think has been really valuable for young people because you've been able to access content that you wouldn't have been able to access before. On top of that, everyone is on their computers now, which I found really useful because it means when I email someone or LinkedIn message someone, you're way more likely to get a reply. So I found like the distance between young people and like people at the height of their careers, that distance has been reduced because everyone has been forced to be on their computers. People aren't traveling, people aren't doing commuting and stuff. So people have more time to reply, which I think has been really positive for us. So I think in one sense, moving online has had those kind of opportunities, but obviously the challenges and the big sort of thing we're trying to understand is you can only build a relationship so far online. And that's kind of the perspective of a lot of our volunteers at ASIP. You can do a good job getting to know someone, but there's something about in-person conversation and you know, that one-on-one nongkrong that's like so important for developing and fostering interpersonal relationships. So I think we definitely are keen to get back to people to like in-person events because I think that's where the magic really happens. Also, like time differences between Australia and Southeast Asia with daylight savings getting further apart. I often have my meetings at 10 p.m, which is 6 p.m. in Vietnam, right? So things like that are definitely the challenges. So I think moving online is obviously one of our priorities in terms of digital engagement. Secondly, I think a big focus of many youth organizations has been strengthening the communities they have rather than trying to build new audiences. So for example, a lot of youth organizations have been focusing on engaging alumni because they have had those interpersonal experiences. So rather than trying to create new communities, you're consolidating the communities you have. So we've seen a lot of sort of investment in alumni engagement. And the final thing I'd say is I think because everything's been online, it's really forced ASIP, and I'm sure other organizations, to really grapple with the differences between different audiences. So obviously, ASEAN Foundation, ASIP, Hello Frankie, we work across like so many different audiences, not only Australia and Indonesia, but like all the audiences within Indonesia and all the audiences in Australia and Myanmar. So I think it's given us some time that we would typically put into like logistics and in-person events to really think about what works for different audiences, playing with our different social platforms to try and engage people, and be really innovative with our programming, because I think everyone kind of gets a free pass this year. If you try something and fail this year, I think everyone kind of gets it. So you might as well just go. And so we've just done lots of really random things, but they've worked really well. So
you'll be forgiven, right?
Yeah, the ASEAN gods will forgive me. So yeah, that's kind of our priorities, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Cam. It's very, very great. I think relating to that, you already mentioned about challenges. I think I want to know more when we're talking about Asia, Southeast Asia, or ASEAN and Australia identity, and differences and how rich our cultural differences is. Although sometimes I feel like when I'm in Australia, I feel like whenever I meet my fellow Southeast Asian, we instantly feel kind of like connected and engaged. Like, but then whenever I go back to Indonesia, I feel like there's differences between me and Philippines, someone from the Philippines or someone from the Vietnam as well. So I want to talk more on kind of like a positive note in terms of like what we can do as a young person post-COVID. I think next year will be like everyone will start fresh. So, and also knowing that our audiences kind of like coming from diverse backgrounds and maybe identities and characters as well, based on your expertise, opinion, and experience with your organization in building kind of like relationship in Southeast Asia and Australia youths, what are the new leadership pathways that you may have found promising post-COVID? I think I'm going to start with Juli, because I think Juli have a lot of programs that she mentioned, and what sort of things that your Love Frankie is looking for from youth across Southeast Asia and Australia, Juli?
Yeah, so basically the learning point when we encounter that we're trying to create an approach engagement during the COVID.
It's more on like the new leadership pathway. So kind of like what sort of things that young people need to have right now to be able to engage actively. Yeah, it's actually the last question.
Yeah. I think a good youth leader is someone who knows himself. He knows his strengths and weaknesses, and then he understands how to use the strengths, but also understand how to do with the weaknesses. So, and I think the youth leader also needs to have the integrity. So for example, his team members can trust and rely on him, and with this integrity, the team member can freely communicate with him, and he also have to values everyone, especially on their own teams. And as I mentioned earlier, that a good leader is someone who knows himself. So he will also realize that all members of all the teams have the weaknesses and also the strengths, that able to take advantage of the strengths of his team members to complement the weaknesses of other team members. Yeah, I think that's the good leaders, youth leader is.
That's actually great. Very philosophical as well. Thank you, Juli. Dr. Yang, how about you? What do you think?
Today I wanted to share one slide, number 7, if you still have it.
Sure.
I did map out something, but for the leadership, because we have always been in the leadership programs, our empowering youth, especially on the ASEAN Foundation Model ASEAN meeting, already 2 years continuously we engage with Australian students. So it's a plus one with the dialogue partners. So the youth has been given the opportunity to mingle Australians and ASEAN. So if, like what Donnie mentioned just now, who are these differences between the ASEAN youth themselves? We can see quite clearly in organization who deal with them. So there are some youth from certain countries that are more outspoken and more confident because of the command of their language, English as the carrier language. For instance, like if you are speaking about Singapore, Malaysia, and especially from Indonesia and also from Philippines. I mean, amazing speaking skills. And now, of course, I found that Myanmar is also amazing. The way they, very articulate when they presented their ideas and pitch and then drive the projects and all that. Because under the ASEAN Foundation Model ASEAN meeting, AFMAM, they have the role play all the youth being given a role play to become the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Culture, Ministry. Not everybody has a role play, so they felt they can have a feel like, how is it at the driving seat? You know, what are you going to do when you are given the opportunity to be at the driving seat? All of them amazingly coming out with fantastic strategy, policy recommendations. So all this compilation of policies and recommendations are not going to waste, because we actually compile it and share it with the secretariat side also. So sometimes certain ideas will be like adopted, you know, and then also certain ideas will be expanded. But we also like to add on, I love Frankie, Julie mentioned about video contest. We have 2 video contests. One is ASEAN Social Journalism Contest, and one is ASEAN Video Contest. So also every time is different kinds of latest topics. For instance, last year was on environmental, and then also on marginalized inclusiveness and all that, you know, social issues and all that. So youth are practically being given a lot of opportunity to test out their leadership skills. And then here we do some compilation, and also on social media, which one that you also did mention, Donnie, on which one works and which one doesn't work. Certain country might be more into certain platform, but from our experience, the biggest platform is definitely Instagram and also Facebook. Okay, these are the 2 social media that we found that the impact is pretty good, and some of our program reach all the way to 1,000 audience per each time. You know, so we easily can get 1,000 audience with just blasting to this few social media platform. So for me, it's the new concept that I want to just show is become an autodidact, an auto learner. You know, to self-learn, self-learn, self-thoughts. You know, because as what to add on to what Cameron mentions, that for young people it's very easy. Okay, the one that is complaining is actually for generation like myself, or generation like 40 above, that have to adapt to the new system. Okay, so for us, it's like the creation of new norms is also from people like my group of age, you know. And then also during this time also, it is a good time to catch anyone that you cannot catch before, as what Cameron has mentioned. That's why during this time also, our programs, we do a lot of interactive communication between our member states, you know, our bosses, all our ambassadors. So we do have alumni sessions with the ambassadors. So we do have 1 or 2 programs designed specially for the ASEAN Youth to have an up close, you know, with the ambassadors and ask them any questions that you want. And we receive a lot of internship requests also. I'm not sure if Julie has that, but I think we, during this few months, since March until now, we have about almost close to 25 interns doing internship with us online. So most of them needs to fulfill the requirement to graduate and all that, because you need to do your internship. But I think most of them really enjoy it because we use their skill to really run and help us with the social media platform. And then the young people are amazing. They know what to do. Even our TikTok, we started our TikTok. So we are TikToking right now, Asean Foundation, with the youth helping us to set up the TikTok story, you know. So I'm looking forward for more of this group now that we are talking. Please do, come and participate in the TikTok with Asean Foundation also, because you can reach with 10 countries youth. You know, they really watch it. They actually follow it. So we wanted to actually inform to give some motivation to all that to be self-motivated learners. Don't be lazy. Don't feel that I'm just waiting for the vaccine to come, so I'm not going to do anything right now. You know, so there are some people have this kind of mentality, like nothing I can do. But it's quite the limit is, the sky is the limit. You know, you might not be able to travel, but there are other things online that people are doing now so well. There are so many business, you know, even restaurant. The artisans restaurant. Crafted food, you know, they do They do online deliveries and all that. They created new recipes and all that. I mean, of course, during this time, a lot of many chef is born. The new chef is born in this time. I mean, everybody cooks at home. But I think there is a lot of opportunity if you know how to really look at it, you know. So self-taught and then engage with the virtual world. Don't stay alone and don't try to be, spending your own time on it. Just reach out, talk to friends, you know, even can have dinner, lunch with friends also online, you know, get your food on the desk, you know. And then we also have many, sometimes we do have activities like asking the youth, you know, what are you cooking? You know, what is your best outfit of your cultural outfit? You know, so they do send in their video sometimes. So we just have a quick edit, you know, and then share with the rest. You know, there's quite interesting. So find and share new knowledge. Be open to other perspectives because this is what we would like to recommend. Be flexible and adaptable because this is the time that you can communicate with everybody anytime, because there's no excuse not to reply, because everybody is almost 24 hours on the screen, you know. So this is actually quite a good opportunity for that. And I think for young people, you won't have the issues. So I back to Donnie. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. It's so good. That's a very nice advice as well. I think with Cameron, I would like to give you a different question in a way. There's a question given in the Q&A by Lachlan. This is also related to, like, you know, the quality of young leaders that we need to have right now as well as a young person ourselves. So Lachlan asked a question. A big name in Indonesian politics this week criticized Indonesian millennials limited contribution to society. So what is on your thoughts on the practical positive impact of Southeast Asia and Australia youth pursuing societal change when there's a lot of people kind of like undermining us?
Yeah, great question. So I think the first thing to say is that young people are often at the forefront of all social movements or play a very important role in a lot of social movements, particularly in Southeast Asia. There are many, many examples of young people being the leaders in those movements. And so I think it's very common for political leaders to find people that they can bash in the media, often for their own political gain. And young people are really easy people to bash because they don't have a voice. They're hugely unrepresented in positions of power, in politics, in the media. There was some research that came out in Australia this week that 59% of times that young people were mentioned in the media in a story, young people weren't interviewed or weren't quoted. So when young people are talked about, often young people aren't involved in setting their own narratives. So I think that's the first point I would make. I would say that young people always doing things. The second point I would make is that often young people doing all this extra work for free, that, you know, all of these, you know, CAUSINDY, ASIP, all these things are amazing organizations and they run on the back of young volunteers. And so I think it's very astounding to say that young people don't do things when in fact they are doing everything for free. So in that sense, again, I would say that those kind of allegations are a bit silly. And I know we've moved past this point, but I really wanted to quickly touch on the previous question about what should young people do to foster leadership skills, to be those sort of change makers. I think I have so many thoughts on this, and I'll be really quick. I think the first thing is you need to nurture creativity, and you need to nurture your creativity. I think we live in a world where it's so common to graduate, if you go to university, for example, and then start in a career and you start at the bottom of a hierarchy, and then you just don't foster your creativity over time. And so if you want to be creative, join an organization like ASIP or CAUSINDY or something like that, where you have creativity and the ability to set your own programs, because that kind of stuff, you learn so many skills, so many soft skills. And I remember a colleague of mine at ASIP recently got a job, and the reason she got it was because she had experience talking with government, because we have to talk with government for grant applications. has experience running programs. And you don't get that kind of experience, you know, in a graduate role. You get that experience doing these kind of volunteer stuff. So I think in terms of leadership, I think you should nurture your creativity by joining youth organizations that give you that opportunity. Secondly, I think you need to develop your soft skills, working with people with different backgrounds. I think particularly people interested in international relations. Again, what I like Australians particularly, we think that we are like, often Australians approach the world thinking we're neutral, that we're culturally neutral, and that we don't have any culture. What is Australian culture? Like, you ask an Australian what Australian culture is, they can't really give you a clear answer. And as a result, a lot of Australians think that they're just like neutral, and then like Southeast Asia is different and cultural and like those kind of words. When in fact, Australians have a lot of culture, they just don't wrestle with the assumptions that we make every day and how we communicate and how we make decisions and how we work in teams. So I think it would be really useful for Australians particularly, and also for example, a lot of my Indonesian friends, it's been very useful for them to work with Australians, because working in different teams lets you think in different ways and learn different skills. And so how can you do that? Again, youth organizations, but also smaller things like at campuses in Australia and in Southeast Asian countries, international students have a really hard time making friends. When I was in exchange, it was so hard to make friends. And when, you know, there's so many international students, I'm sure Donnie has stories about this, it's so hard to make friends. If you just go talk to some international students, that's a really great way you can foster those skills. And it's so simple. It's as simple as having a conversation with someone. I also encourage people, you know, learn Asian languages at university, or if you get the opportunity, apply for one of the ASEAN Foundation or ASIP programs, which allows you to travel and do things like AFMAM, where you get to work with other people. I think that's so important for the future in terms of as companies become more globalized, having those intercultural skills is so essential. And the final thing I'll note, I know, again, talking too much, is I wouldn't underplay the value of networking. And that sounds like a gross thing to say, because I hate to think that the world is nepotistic. And I hate to think that, you know, we're always told, particularly in Australia, the world is a meritocracy and that, you know, that the best people will be selected. From my experience, that's just not necessarily the case. And as Dr. Yang was saying before, the labour market is so competitive. You've got to get yourself out there. And I think the way to do that is to take risks and do exciting projects. And I think that like things like ASIP are a great opportunity. Things like CAUSINDY, where you're getting to run things, they're the things that make you stand out as a young person. So I think, and they also give you the networks to be able to leverage it to find opportunities. So definitely network. And I would get onto it soon, because once this pandemic ends, people are going to be back to their normal lives. We'll not have time to reply to your emails. So send those emails, send those LinkedIn requests, get chatting to people, because now is the time to do it.
It is indeed now the time to do it. Thank you, Cameron, to wrap things up. I think we don't have enough time to answer all of the questions from the Q&A, although there was a very good questions and you answered it perfectly as well, Cam. I think to wrap up, because we have around 2 more minutes, if I'm not sure if Cameron should share his TikTok account, but maybe Dr. Yang, Juli, and also Cameron, can you type down in the chat section on the links that the future program that our audiences can engage with? Maybe is there any like openings or competition that about to begin, or maybe kind of like applications that need to be filled out to be part of Asian Foundation's program or AC program? And also, Juli, if you have any campaigns that you want us to engage with, please use the chat sections to share it.
Who go first? I go first? Okay, right.
Go ahead, okay.
Yeah, Donnie, thank you for giving us the opportunity to publicize promotion. Okay, we do have, you can follow Asean Foundation's Facebook. You can, you know, be our followers, because we always advertise our programs there. And then also in LinkedIn and also in our website, of course, ASEANFoundation.org. So we do have one coming, which is the video contest. supported, also collaborated with Prospect and USA and also Ireland Embassy. You know, it's very kind of them. They come and approach us and they wanted to partner. So this time I think is about COVID-19 and the youth. So it's really about you, you know. So I'm sure you can come up with some interesting story. And I'm looking forward for the inspiring story, and not only the sad one, okay, because video can be a very strong weapon, instrument to achieve something positive at this moment. We need that, okay? So that's all. And then our internship always open, but of course there is an issue always, I think, Cameron, about payment. So as what Cameron says, sometimes just get the opportunity to do it first. Since now it's online, so you don't have to move yourself to Jakarta, because Jakarta, one thing, is most expensive city in the world. So I think, Julie, your mic is off, Julie. It's very expensive. I used to thought Jakarta is very cheap. Oh my God.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, so now at least you can do it at the comfort of your home. So we have students as far as Spain and Japan and China also. Yeah. So just do it while other students in other country can do it. And some of the students in Spain, they have to wake up to have meeting with us 4 a.m. their time. So I really appreciate them, okay? So do it and come and join us, okay? Thank you so much. I'll pass it back to Donnie. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Yang. Julie or Cameron, do you wanna, Cameron already jot down the next opportunity from ASIP. Thank you. How about Julie? Okay.
Yeah, so
Julie, do you have anything to share?
Yeah, our next program is Tular Nalar. So we're going to have an interactive online website for everyone to learn about media and digital literacy. But unfortunately, the website just going to be launched on January 2021. So it's still under development. It's still under development, but you can always follow the Instagram account of our company, which is LoFrankico. I'm going to write down on the chat. And then you can get every update of our new latest program in every country on that Instagram account.
Sorry, just let me batch in. Julie, Ibu Julie, let's partner and see we work. Because we like your program. Later we will be in touch, okay?
Yeah, maybe we can have an offline meeting after this.
Yeah, after this, okay?
Thank you.
Cameron, any last bits?
No, I would just say the best way to keep on top of these organizations is to follow the social medias, because there are always opportunities, always happening. So like I've mentioned, we have got 2 things happening at the moment. So you can submit an abstract to our ASEAN Australia review, which is a book. And so all you have to do is submit 150 words of what you want to write. And then over November, December, January, you can write your 3,000 word submission. So it's a very low-hanging fruit in terms of entry. So there's abstracts open at the moment. And then secondly, we're running a really cool modern slavery project over online between January and March, where young people that work or are interested in modern slavery, human trafficking or forced labor get to learn from like leaders in the region and collaborate. So then you've got like a strong network of collaborators. So those applications open on Monday.
That's amazing. I used to work with Julie around human trafficking issues in the past, so.
Right.
Okay, so thank you very, very much on behalf of CAUSINDY, Dr. Yang, Cameron, and Julie. It's such an honor to hear the 3 of you speaking today. I learned a lot, and there's kind of like fire once again as a young person, as a young Southeast Asians in Australia. I feel like this is such a great learning process for us to be better, especially post-COVID. But before closing, I would just to remind our audience that we will have our last webinar next month. We're partnering with Australia Indonesia Institute with the topic of gender intersectionality and empowerment in Indonesia and Australia. So it's exciting talk next month. So stay tuned, and also follow CAUSINDY at CAUSINDY in our Instagram, Twitter, and also Facebook. And also don't forget to wait for this podcast, this recording to be released in our podcast and in our YouTube channel as well. Okay, thank you very, very much. I hope you have a great evening and afternoon after this, and selamat malam, selamat makan.
Selamat malam. Bye, take care.
Bye, bye everyone.
Thank you, bye-bye.